Set that out of the way.
Awesome.
Coming to you live from the 757, where real estate investing and beer collide. This is Hopportunity Investors. Ow!
Double up the claps. Double the claps. What's up, guys? Alex Winfield here. JP. Sean is enjoying a night with his wife. It's her birthday, so smart man. Staying home with her. And we've got Mr. Macon Davis joining us tonight.
How you doing? Nice to meet you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Going to be talking about property management. Just for you guys, I think most of y'all heard this, but the microphones are for the live stream. We don't have it through the PA, so I know it seems strange that we're speaking with a microphone and there's no audio coming out. So, yeah. So, now that we're past that, so Opportunity Investors, we talk about real estate investing strategies, financing options, and the implementation of those in our market here in Hampton Roads. We bring in industry professionals to talk on relevant subjects, and we'd like to do it over some craft beer. Generally, is the idea. So we always like to start by raising our glasses for a quick toast. You're good. You can come in. You don't have to ninja in. All right. Raise your glasses. May your castle be secure and your cup overflowing. You're good. Cheers. I'm home. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about property management. Macon's going to be filling us in on kind of what's happening now, what he does, and things to know, things to avoid, and answer some questions for you guys. But before we get into that, kind of talk about some things going on in Opportunity. Next month, I think we're going to be doing Airbnb, talking about short-term rental, which is always a big one for us. So I think we're going to have the guys from Tesseract come in and talk about that. That's we've had them come in the last couple of years, and they've got a ton of information on rules and regs in the area and just what direction things are going, how to market your place, and different things like that. So great stuff, great information for short-term rentals in Hampton Roads and Virginia Beach, Norfolk, very different area, so we'll address that. And Portsmouth, totally different. So just kind of dive into each of those areas. So I did want to address, this is kind of my last night as being up here with Opportunity. I'm going to be still part of Opportunity, but I'm kind of stepping back from the Tuesday nights, mainly because I have 4 kids and now they have all gotten into sports and different things. So Tuesday nights have become a little bit more active than they used to be. So, but that's a good thing. Sean, who is not here, we've been doing it for like 5 years. So excited that this thing's still going on after this amount of time, and excited to hand it off. Going to be bringing on JP over here. He is on my team. He's an awesome real estate agent. We've done deals together since probably, I don't know, pretty much right soon after I got in the business. We started working together on the investment side. He was doing wholesale stuff, and he's done everything from, wholesaling, has helped people with flips and long-term rentals, all different kinds of stuff. But I think it's crucial, right? We've got Sean, who is a juggernaut in the wholesaling world. And if we just have Sean up here by himself, it'd be a scary thought. So we got to have a real estate agent up here to balance that out. Otherwise, we'll just sit up here and talk trash about real estate agents for like the whole time. So we got to keep a little balance here. So JB is going to keep that balance going. We're excited to have him taking over, and just excited to see what happens after I move out and we get some new energy in here. And Vanessa and Ashley, all the people behind the scenes are still going to be rolling and just kind of keeping things going. So that's kind of what's going on right now in Hopportunity. But so we don't waste any more time, I want to talk about Macon Davis up here. Macon and I have been working together since I got into the business. He was one of the key mentors that got me into the business. Actually, Gerard over here was one of the guys that got me into the business as well. And so, I'm excited to have him up here. And he's actually one of the reasons that I'm at Coastal Group. Just great, aligning yourself with great people that do really good business. And Macon's been basically a partner for as long as I've been in here, and we've, evolved in real estate together. And he's evolved in the property management game, which a lot of property managers have not. So property management for a lot of people is kind of this like medieval kind of like thing. Like people are still writing on notepads and, so it's great to see what him and Glenn have done over at Coastal Group to really keep up with the times and be able to provide service to their clients at a high level. And so without any further ado, I want to introduce you guys, Mr. Macon Davis.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it, and don't let Alex short sell you. He's been as much of an integral part, even in our property management side, as any of us in Coastal Group. So we appreciate you. Your ideas and thoughts have helped tremendously. So we absolutely appreciate you, and I just appreciate you as a friend. Just touching on the whole caveman-ish property management world that's out there, you have to evolve in this thing or you're not going to survive. And that's the one thing that we've always spoken about and trying to stay ahead of the game. And I'm going to touch on something just because I know Vanessa wanted to touch on a little bit was the the AI, how that could possibly affect property management. In all honesty, and Vanessa, I love you. I don't know yet. It's one of those things where it's still so fresh. I can speculate on how it's going to affect it. I can tell you that it could affect communication with tenants. It could affect payments. It could affect this and that. We just don't know. It's just too early. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I see it affecting marketing, communication, tenant showings, all those types of things in some way. I still think realtors there's nothing that's going to beat the presence of a realtor and what we do, but it's going to impact. And if you're not ready, I see it as a tool, but if you're not ready for it, it's going to be bigger than you. So we'll see. But anyhow, getting back to the beginning of it, I'm going to cover a couple of things first. And I want you guys to ask. I'm not just going to run through this and talk at you. That's not the way I operate. So if you have questions, please ask them. We'll do it in real time. And that's how we're going to roll. I'm going to try to cover the boring stuff first. And the boring stuff to me is the new legislation in Virginia. Every year, I listen to Chip Dix. We go to a seminar and he goes over everything that's new and everything that could happen and those types of things. In all honesty, in the last couple of years, there hasn't been a lot of new legislation because of COVID, and that was doing to us. So they didn't want to make a whole lot of changes other than trying to be pro-tenant, which I'm not against being pro-tenant, but they really stretched the boundaries of what that meant. And, whether it was, handicapping owners so they couldn't evict the tenants or payment plans that lasted a year long, it was kind of becoming insane. So some of the stuff I'm going to cover is dead legislation, and dead legislation are things that were killed in the Virginia House and Senate. But the reason why I like to cover it is because it could probably come up again in the next year. And if it does, some of these things could pass, which to me would be completely insane. But you never know. So one of the things that they tried to do was say, no matter if you're a landlord, you have to allow pets no matter what. Look, I'm going to be the first person to tell you, every renter has a pet these days. Well, honestly,
Even
yes, even
snakes,
snakes, Ryan. And and I've collected. This is funny. I've collected pet deposits on
Rats?
snakes, and the reason why, snakes, goldfish, et cetera, that tank can cause damage, especially if it has water in it. So when someone says you're going to collect a deposit on my goldfish, well, hell yeah, I'm going to collect a deposit on your goldfish because it's going to cause damage if it breaks. That legislation I feel like might pass when it comes back up. Um, Everybody, as far as renters are concerned right now, they all have pets. And whether I think it's a good idea or not, most renters I come across, hey, will you accept my 3 pit bulls? No, I won't. But someone will, and it's getting to this point. So I think all landlords should be prepared for that. Because I think good question. Great question. Absolute. The question was, can you increase the deposit amount additionally? Absolutely. And honestly, we've got parameters on how it works depending on weight, pet, et cetera, et cetera. Um, However, it's at the landlord's discretion. So if I call you and I say, hey, he's got a dog and it weighs 100 pounds, what do you want to do? If you say I want to charge $800, hey, sorry, tenant, it's $800. You want to pay for it or not? Funny part is tenants will pay. They love their animals. They're going to pay for it. And then we also charge them pet rent per month. So if it's $800 and $30 per pet rent per month, that's extra money in the landlord's pocket, and they'll pay it. It's unbelievable, but happens every day. So that's one of the things that I think it's going to happen. This one is kind of wild. Prohibiting background checks. No matter your politics, I don't know what side of the aisle everybody's on. Doesn't really matter to me. But this is crazy. We're in a controlled state right now where on the left side they're saying we don't want to discriminate against people who might have this or that on their background. I'm like, well, wait a second. That's one of our only tools to say no, this person can't live here. So that's something that's probably gonna come back around next year, and they basically don't want us to use criminal history in determining who's going to move into a property. That's insane. We as realtors, we donate to all sorts of funds and PACs to help fight this. Any realtor that's listening, you need to donate. You need to talk to your local folks and help figure this part out because that's insane.
Yeah, I was talking to an agent about this the other day, and they were getting a little aggressive about it. But the topic was, why would you do the realtors as opposed to not? Because it's an extra expense. And I'm not a huge realtor guy, but one of the things they do is they actually lobby for, what makes sense, because we are the kind of forefront of understanding real estate and property management, that stuff. So there is some value to having this realtor group that is looking at it from, boots on the ground perspective as to what some of these rules and regulations should be. So it's not just a bunch of people up in DC telling us how we should, how people should, manage their properties and be a landlord. So there is a value to realtors as opposed to a real estate agent. And that is, I think, one of the huge values.
To wholeheartedly agree. And, if you if you come across someone that's not a realtor, you might want to rethink that, but that's your business when you're in real estate. But that's just what I think. They want to try to keep COVID payment plans in place. Not a big fan of this one. Makes our job a lot harder. We're in my itty bitty mind, we're past that, and we need to move on. So that's kind of how I feel about it, and hopefully it doesn't come back up. This one's kind of funny. I was going to mention to you the other day. In the event of eviction, they're trying to say if there is a minor in the home, which there almost always is, you cannot evict that tenant until there is an advocate assigned to that minor, and through social services or what have you. That's another one that to me that's just absolutely crazy. And I understand the logic to it. I just don't agree.
And they probably don't have a way to facilitate that.
Exactly. There's no way to facilitate this. It's one of those things where they just want to throw it in the law and then say, oh, well, we'll figure it out. Don't agree with that at all. I don't know if you guys know what rent control is, and they do that in New York City and other places. They're talking about doing it here. It's an insane practice to me. Landlords don't want it. I don't know why they would even think of it. It doesn't really work that well, if at all. It's kind of a mess, but that's another one. And the last one being electric vehicle charging stations. Yeah. So they want to have every landlord install this at their rental on the landlord's dime. So that one is pretty wild to me as well. And then, as we know, if you've ever looked into something like that, it's not cheap. So it's just, I'm like, well, who's coming up with this? I don't know, but it's insane.
So I just want to clarify: these are the things that were put out
Yeah.
there that were killed. So they're not in effect now.
No.
But Macon's saying that they could come back up again. A lot of times they do come back. So.
I'm only mentioning it because I see these things come back, and about maybe one or two of them actually possibly might pass in a different form. But typically they're going to come back up for the next 2-3 years. So before we go any further, anybody got any questions on them? Okay.
And we can jump back at some of those.
Yeah.
Those are pretty interesting.
I also wanted to kind of just cover things, and we had some handouts and we forgot to hand them out. That's okay. Yeah, if you don't mind, just those papers. There's should be obviously enough for everybody, but the first paper and then the stapled papers they're two separate things. Yeah, and yeah, just one of each. And so you don't have to look at these or follow along right now. It's just information I wanted you guys to have, because it's like the best practices that we've over time come up with for landlords and well, not tenants, but landlords and real estate agents and brokers. This is typically what I would literally one of the first things I give to someone I'm about to work with. If they contact me and say, hey, I've got a referral from so and so, and I want to try to work with you, I'll give them this in a blank management agreement and say, read through all of this before we talk again, and then we'll discuss it. Because when it comes to how you're picking your property manager, you should be interviewing each other. It's not just you asking about me. I'm going to ask about you as well, because I want to make sure that you guys are on the up and up, that you're taking care of your home, that you're willing to take care of your home, and that we can work together and kind of forge ahead on the same path. Because there's nothing worse than working with an owner or you working with a manager that they're just not doing the right things, and you got to at least deal with it for a year, and that's not fun for anybody. But a couple of those things I'll just quickly touch on. Smoke detectors in the last, I'd say 5 to 6 years have become a pretty big deal. If I were a landlord, having multiple rental properties or even one property, I would recommend highly that you have someone else come in and inspect those detectors, install them, change batteries, all those things. What that does for you is it takes the liability off of you and places it squarely onto the person who did it. And there's several companies now that are doing this, and we have them do it for all of our rentals. I mean, I manage approximately 300 rentals, single family homes. My team does, and then about 110 commercial units. There's not one of those units that doesn't get touched with my smoke detector guy. I don't want that liability. I don't want it on tenant, and I don't want it on landlord. Tenants will remove things from the home, and if that happens, then I don't want that on us. You had a question? Yep. Okay.
I videotape myself. Hey, here's the unit. Change the batteries. Here we go.
I mean, you can do that at your own risk. It's not going to really hold up anywhere. I still strongly recommend that you contact, and you might want to just see who has the best prices or who do you like the most. But it's just, I think if you're going to be in this game and you're opening yourself up to all sorts of liability by doing that. Exactly. So, I use a company. It's actually an ex-fire chief from the area, and they are trained and personalized in this. And so, I mean, we're talking certificates, all the whole nine that we have to get. Tenant signs it. We have to get a copy of it put in the file, and we do this once per year. And we do it, and we also do it each turnover. So when the property turns over, okay, go back in, check the smoke detectors. It's just one of those things you don't want to play with, honestly. Yeah, good question. It's 65. Well, our company is $65 per inspection if they don't have to do a thing, because if the smoke detector is still within the service date, if it still has a good lithium battery in it, they're just going to charge the $65 for the entire house. it's priced depending on what they have to do. So if it's a battery, it might be $5. If it's change out a whole smoke detector, it could be I think they charge 15 or 20 bucks for that. If it's CO2, then another 15 or 20 bucks. So it just depends. The most expensive time you do it is going to be the first time, because they're going to make sure everything's within code. They're going to make sure everything's working. They're going to literally go outside to their truck and test it with smoke. So, I mean, it's
all 10-year lithium batteries.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they'll, once they've done it the first time, they'll come back and it shouldn't be expensive the next time.
Yeah.
But like for me, whenever I do it at my house, I'm like, shit, did I actually do this? Is the like, what kind of battery was in this? Did I take it from my kid's toy? You know, so like those things that you don't want to, you know, you might have missed. They're gonna be on top of it, and they're gonna take that liability. So, I mean, there's a cost.
Yeah.
And honestly, I always say too, like for guys that are doing it themselves, it's always, you know, a risk management, right? Like, is it worth you to spend, you know, $150 on it? Usually that's probably worthwhile. I mean, some things in real estate, you know, do I need a $5,000 insurance policy when that's the most valuable thing I own? I don't know. Look at, you know, basically weigh it out to see if it makes sense for you. But for the most part, something like that, when it comes to fire, man.
Yeah. It's
and CO2, you know, those are all things that will kill you. So
I don't personally want to be responsible for something like that. And that's why we did it. It was when we first heard about it, it was one of those things like, what? Like, you want us to do what? But then when we really got to thinking about it and we consulted our attorney, it was just like, why aren't we doing this? Like, this is crazy not to do this. So something to think about, Ryan.
Why can't I just put it on the tenant? Throw it in the lease. You're responsible for changing out the battery.
why can't we just charge it to the tenant?
So no, but the reason why is just because, again, that's gonna, if something happens, it's gonna fall back on you. They're not gonna, just because it's in the lease. It's your house, Ryan. Your house. Major part of the house. Major safety measure. Your home. You know what I mean? It's you just have to think of it that way.
And I think one thing to go back to is legislation's one thing, rules are one thing. The judge is going to rule in favor of, at least from our experience,
Every time.
they're going to rule in favor of the tenant almost every time. So
yeah,
it's not like it's a cover your ass. Yeah, the tenant maybe should do it. They should take care of themselves, you know, take care of that. And maybe you can charge them for it, but if they don't do it, you should probably still do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, try to push it off to them, but if they don't, then maybe.
And you make a good point with that. Coming from a person who, in his real estate career, has decided to go to court one day for an eviction, and having the judge hand you your ass because you didn't have an attorney, and you cannot argue, or I say argue, but you cannot discuss anything with the judge. They're not trying to hear that. I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, but the moment you start saying, but sir, it says here, they don't want to hear any of that. It's what they say. They don't, even if it's true and it's the law, they don't give a shit. Excuse my language. It's just the way it is. So that's something you don't want to do. And actually that leads me to something else. If you have to do an eviction, depending on how you feel about it, you probably just want to hire an attorney. I mean, as property managers, we always use an attorney. Again, I've been to court just to kind of see if I can do it my way, and I haven't done it in years, but it's just not worth it. If you own one house and you want to go try it that way, sure. Just make sure you have your ducks in a row when the judge starts asking you questions. But I would personally hire an attorney. It's going to cost you a little bit, but you can bill it to the tenant, take it from their deposit if you have to, if there's anything left, and you know, go from there. But it's just hard to get in front of a judge and try to tell them how to do their job. They do not want to hear it. So. Another good one, service animals and emotional support animals. So this has always been pretty big hot button over the years. The way we do it is a little different, and I don't know how other managers do it, so I can't speak to that. But we were having severe issues with it, with everyone coming through every single time saying, "Oh, this is a service animal." We have this letter from Dr. Jim Dandy out over in Kentucky, and he says we can have this. Well, most of the time it was crap. It was just some internet letter they would print off, and the doctor would produce it for them. What we do, well, two things. The legislation in Virginia changed a couple years ago to where now it has to be from a doctor in Virginia that they can be able to contact and verify if they need to. Coastal Group uses a service called pet screening. Basic stuff. Just like they apply for their place, they have to apply for their pet. This information gets input. It guarantees they have to prove that the pet is licensed, has all its shots. They have to sign an affidavit saying it's never harmed anyone. Then that information does not go to me. It goes to a set of attorneys that run this program, and they do all the verification for us, because that way it keeps us out of trouble with DPOR, which Department of Professional Occupation Regulation. They're not beating down our door saying, hey, you told this person that they can't have this, and now you're discriminating against them. We didn't want any part of that, because it comes up and it happens from time to time. So we're just saying, hey, we're not saying anything. These attorneys over here that do the real work, they're telling you can't have the pet because it's not legit.
Yeah, because there are protections in place for people who have service animals.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. But there's so many people who
In those boundaries.
who have taken advantage of it. But so as a property manager or a landlord, you got to be super careful what you do or say or ask for. So I think that software and that company, I guess not just software, is a huge benefit, because I mean, how else are you going to know what the heck you're getting in your house?
It has literally stopped all of our problems. Like just that software alone. And that's, what we talked about earlier about kind of getting ahead of the curve and doing things that other people aren't doing out there as property managers. That was one of those tools that we said, you know what? Yes, it costs money, but are we going to have problems afterwards? No, and we haven't. As a single family home owner, if you just have one rental out there or something like that, you may not have to answer to all the rules and regulations and guidelines that we do as realtors, but you do want to be on the right side of the law if it comes up. And so that's why I always recommend doing certain things. And that's
and pet owners are crazy.
Absolutely.
They will drag you through the fire for, not just pet owners, but I don't know why, but that always seems to be something that comes up, and people take it to the extreme.
They do. It's one of the biggest things that they get angry about. So, but yeah, so that's just one of those other things.
And hey, if everybody is allowed to have a pet in the future, then this is you at least want to know what kind of pet you've got in your.
I'm telling you, I think that one's coming. I don't see a way around it.
Remember that one property where they said they had a Chihuahua, and then our maintenance guy goes out to the property, and he's like, I heard a dog barking in the property.
I heard a beast.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, they said they had a dog. It was like a Chihuahua. He's like, dude, it's not a Chihuahua. I go over there. It's the biggest Great Dane I've ever seen in my life. It was giant. I'm like, dude, come on, man.
But that's what they do, though, right? I mean, it's
I said its name was Chihuahua.
exactly. Exactly, right?
Yeah, I don't know. This was a deep voice. But hey, I want to get it. I want to get some audio of your
right.
your deep voice,
I want to
Corgi,
hear
for
this
sure.
this grown
Heck
man
yeah.
dog here. Yeah.
We're good.
Another one that I wanted to make sure I covered Vanessa, but also it's important for landlords to hear if you're thinking about dealing with a property manager. You should always be asking your property manager how they are finding, like, how do they vet their tenants? What's the process? It's important, beyond the application. I mean, you want to have, of course, your rental verification, and even if you're not dealing with a property manager, you should be doing this. But you want to have your rental verification. You want to run a credit and background check, which is so important, because there are going to be things that you find on there, whether it's the money, whether it's the background. We're a little bit more strenuous on ours, but if it's on there, don't second guess it. That's the one thing I can tell you. If it's there, take it for what it is, and let that be your decision. Don't fight it. Don't play with it. Just say, you know what, that doesn't look good. I don't like it. because you're right. Most most of the time, I've learned my lesson more times than I can count.
Here's one thing I will say from like at the difference between a landlord and a property manager. If I'm doing my own property, I'm going to be much more lenient on who I have in my property, right? I can be, I can have my Christian values come out and really try to help somebody in the property that I own. I can't do that in a property I manage. That's not.
What's the saying, Alex? You can't be a Christian with someone else's
Don't be
property.
quoting me on this. Can't be a Christian with somebody else's property.
It was the truest thing.
I don't know, but I'm not going to sit here and be over generous with somebody else's money in their property. So I think that's something to point out when you're looking at whether you're going to hire a property manager or not. You good? Come on through.
Yeah.
Is that you can come through? You good?
Yeah, you're fine.
It's just the fact that they've got certain rules that they go by, and then they stick to those rules, whether they're perfect or not. They've got a set group of rules that they have to abide by, and that is a huge protection. Not saying you can't find good people that have done bad things. 100% you can, but like anything in business, is you have to mitigate your risk, and the property manager has a set strategy to mitigate risk.
Yeah.
So whether it's the nicest thing in the world or not, I don't know, but having somebody that does that for you is a huge help. I mean, I would probably be a better property manager than I am a landlord, I guess is the way to put it. Like as far as putting people in properties. So
I just, I think I think that's one of the things the property manager will do for you is I've literally at this point seen it all. Like there's probably nothing I haven't seen. And so now it's to a point where, and with the team we have, I've got I don't do everything myself. And that falls back to the questions I was going to get to later, but things that you should ask your potential property manager before you sign with them. One of the things you should ask them is it just you? Are you the only one working here? And how many properties do you manage? Because for a strong property manager, and I consider myself a strong property manager, I can probably do about 80 properties by myself. A normal property manager, somewhere between 50 and 75. If it's just them working it, find yourself another property manager, because, and I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't say that, but that's the old school way of doing it. And if you don't have a person helping you do your work, because it's a lot, you're bound to fail, miss things. You're just going to piss everyone off, the tenant, the owner, everyone. We have a leasing agent, a maintenance coordinator, my admin, a commercial agent. So we've got 4 people plus me, that's 5, doing one book of business. Our book of business is big, but because of what we do, we can scale.
And then we've got Glenn, who actually keeps up with all these million rules they come up with every year.
So our broker Glenn and our partner keeps up with every type of legislation and rules and codes, and that's the job of the broker, and that's what he does very well. And then we just do the work. But ask your property manager how many properties they have, because if they're overwhelmed, you're not going to be a happy person. That's the bottom line. And we've been there. We've all been there.
And eventually they will be overwhelmed. That's the thing, right? They've got 30 properties now. Well, they're going to end up getting, 20 more, and then your one property is not going to be as important as it was. So you got to make sure you got somebody who definitely is going to be able to keep up.
I mean, the main goal to me was just having someone that could answer the phone for the owners as they called our office if I was not available, because, the last thing I need is someone just beating down my door and I'm busy. It's I just don't want anyone to think that you're being neglected as an owner. And I think that's how as an owner, you should feel that way too. The last thing about verification I want to touch on, because this has become a big one in the last couple of years, when you meet a new tenant and you get ready to sign them to a lease, now I've got people checking social media, because if you check social media, you will find a hell of a lot of things that you didn't know. You might have suspected it just by meeting that person, but go to their Facebook accounts and see if they have an Instagram account. Um, I've seen some things.
Future tenants and future
I've seen some things.
real estate individuals.
I mean that's now I will say this. It's a very good question because that was the first thing I thought about. Typically, if I'm checking your social media, you weren't a sparkling candidate in the first place. You're on the edge, and I'm like, okay, let me just make sure there's nothing crazy here because I've usually gone to the owner and say, this is what I got. The credit is X. Background, back in 2000 they had a DUI or whatever. But I'm like, well, you know what? Let me take it one step further, and I'll go to the social media and I'll see that they're in Las Vegas spending money like water. I'm like, this is why they can't pay their bills. But which has literally happened. That was a recent one. But yeah, social media. You're not going to say I saw you on Facebook doing something stupid. It's your credit's just not up to snuff. That's usually how it falls in line. Because if they have a problem there, the problem existed before that. Ways to when you actually get the tenant in there and you verify them, everything checks out well, and it works for you as an owner. Once our property management company calls you and says what we have, once you get them in there, you want to treat them well. And I know some folks. I come across a lot of owners that they don't want to spend a dime, and that's unfortunately that's not going to work. And if you want to retain your tenants, and want to make sure that you don't have high cost turnovers, because every time you turn that property, if the tenant moves out, it's going to cost you money, a pretty good amount of money most of the time. You want to keep them there as long as you can. You want to keep them happy as long as you can. I promise you, if you keep them happy, you'll be able to raise your rents. They're not going to even mind because the property is in good shape. You're fixing the things that need to be fixed. And they're just like, you know what? The rent's going up, but I got it good here. Why would I leave? That's the way you keep your tenants. You should be putting money into your property every single year, whether you have repairs or not. Bottom line. I don't know who told owners that they shouldn't spend money. It's just a mistake. Your property is going to fall into disrepair, and then once that happens, they're going to be calling me, blaming me for it. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I've been telling you to do this. So put money into your properties, fix things that need to be fixed. Your tenant will stay. I promise. They're not going to go anywhere. Most people are renting for life. We're not talking about people who are going to buy houses most of the time. So keep them there, do those things, and be proactive about it. If your HVAC is going bad and it was going bad last summer, replace your HVAC system. Make sure you save the money from, whether you have rent overflow or whatever you have, cash flow to do it. But just do it. Don't wait till the last minute. Water heaters, if you're getting up there in age, it's 9-10 years old, replace it. Why wait? Why wait till it leaks? Like if it's in your attic, it leaks through the house and leaks through the ceiling and causes more damage. So instead of paying, I don't know. I know what our folks might charge for water. I don't know what other people do, but if your water heater, if your water heater is like 9 to 10 years old, you might want to consider replacing that water heater, because I'm not saying it's going to fail, but if it does, most of the time it's catastrophic and ruins your flooring or your ceiling or wherever it's located. And the HVAC system, if you start having issues with it after, honestly, these days, the way they make them, you might, depending on where you live, oceanfront or somewhere inland, you might get 10 to 15 years out of it. But if it starts having major issues, replace it. Don't fool around with it. Your home is an asset. Protect your investment. Just take care of it. Yeah, and that's another thing. You can't think of your house. If you lived in it, great, and now you're renting it, you can no longer think of it as your home. It is not your home. It's an investment. It's an asset. You hire your property manager to protect your investment and work with you in that regard. Stop being attached to it. We come across a lot of owners that are attached to their homes, and they can't understand why Jimmy Tennant didn't take care of it the way they did, or why there's a nick in the wall, or why it needs to be painted again. I'm like, look, man, no one is ever going to take care of this house the way you do. It's just not going to happen. If you want that to be done, you want the yard taken care of, hire a lawn maintenance company. They're not going to cut the grass the way you cut the grass. Just stop thinking this stuff. It's insane.
And that dark purple bedroom is not as cool as you think it is.
No, it is not. You will need to return the paint to its original color to rent that house because your dark purple bedroom is not desirable amongst tenants. I promise you. I promise you. But yeah, I actually wrote down don't be stingy because I have a lot of owners that are stingy with their money. If a property manager that you've hired calls you to make a repair and it's somewhat costly, don't get mad at him or her. They're not, trust me, they don't want to call you. They never want to call you. Ever. They're only calling you out of necessity because this has to get done and you have to do it. Don't argue with them. Just, yeah, I know it sucks. You can express that frustration, but do what you have to do. You're the landlord. If you don't want to do it, get out of the business. Sell your home. Do something else, but don't be a landlord.
And I do think there's times where you can start putting money aside.
Yeah.
You know it's coming. Like, that's when you start saving money for it. Nobody's ever like, oh my God, I have to replace my roof today. It was like we told you like 10 years ago.
It's been leaking for 3 years.
We did like 20 roof repairs.
Yeah.
Every time they said.
Yeah, it's, I be real careful about what I say because this one's actually deep we're gonna play on it. Had an owner that I had met this person at their property no less than 7 times personally. I didn't even send Kim or Tim or any. I met them personally there. Over the years, we did inspections. You should always request an inspection halfway through the lease so you can see what that looks like. But we did an inspection halfway through the lease every single year. She saw the property, and then near the end of the relationship, all this work needed to be done, and she just said, "Oh my God, you guys just neglected my property. Oh my God, you guys are just the most terrible property management company. I hate you. I'm going to file a complaint." I'm just like, well, that's great. I've got all this paperwork here that I documented that we saw and told you and took pictures and sent you these. Good luck with that. We'll see you later. Yeah, just listen to your property manager, and if for some reason you don't trust it or don't feel like it's the proper information, go look at it if you're in town. Just go see it. Go see it. Yeah. So what he was saying was how much money should you set aside for savings for your homes? It's a very good question. If I'm the wrong person to ask, I think I might let Alex answer this question because he does it a lot. But if you're asking me, every bit that comes in over the rent, because you never know what's going to happen, and you want to be able to proactively do things, whether it's replace the roof, replace your AC, those things. And if you have something else you can do, put it back into the house. If I guess it also depends on what the finances look like for that particular house. But Alex, what's your recommendation?
I always say just at a minimum 10%.
Okay.
Now, granted, you should do more than that, but if you can just do 10% a year, I feel like you're going to cover your basis.
It's a good number, Alex. He's not wrong.
I mean,
I got a question. So, say for example, you do put not 10%, but your cash flow, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna put all of my money to the side for the first year.
Yep.
Of that property. Does the property management company have any type of program that because the money is still technically yours, right?
Yeah.
And you can pull out, for whatever you may have at the end of the year.
Yep.
Or, because I do understand that you pay the owners out, but or is that something you would have to put in an agreement? Like, hey, I'm going to put all my money aside for the end of the year, and then I need to take something out, or you kind of understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I would first ask you if you were hiding money from your wife. No, I'm kidding. But so basically, what Rick was asking was, would we hold if an owner requested us to hold all their funds above what we pay out, whatever? Is that what you're saying? Okay, just hold it until the end of the year and with interest. So no is the answer. Yes, we'll hold your money, not with interest. But We actually have, it's a good question. We actually have a couple of owners that we do that with. We hold every cent. We don't pay them anything. And then at the end of the year, they'll call us and just say, hey, I would like to have X. Give me X amount of dollars. And we send them a check, and that's that. So yes, yeah, it's in our escrow account.
Um, so it's not necessarily, oh, we're going to do this percentage. It's just anything above that mortgage payment is going to go towards that payment, just so it builds up. It's just, for us, it's just less stress. It's like when something comes up, I'm not like, oh man, I got to take it out of my kid's college fund.
Oops, right here.
Check it out too. But yeah, it's you know, I think a lot of guys are going to use that for, hey, let's just keep this here. It's no stress when it comes out of the fund that it was put in there for. This is just for this property. Guess what? I got to buy a new roof. Whatever, it was sitting in
I
there.
already had it.
I didn't spend that money yet. I think for most people, that's what it is. But I don't think it's necessarily a tax savings. It's better to, when you spend the money, it's a tax savings.
Yeah.
But if you don't spend it and just sit there and you get a chunk of it, I don't think it does you any good tax wise.
I don't think so either. And again, which you just actually something you just said is spending money helps you with your taxes. If you're doing repairs, you're going to get tax breaks on that. So you should kind of want to do that, but you know, it's hard to explain that to people. They never understand it.
To a podcast this morning, you take your money and put it in a permanent life insurance policy, you can tap into that whenever you want. No interest, no tax benefits.
Nice. Yeah, he's saying you could take your money, put it into a permanent life insurance, and pull from that.
Not permanent.
Wait,
No, I'm sorry, you got permanent, not whole life.
permanent.
Permanent life, sorry.
Okay.
Which I have heard some of that. That's something I definitely got to.
That's a good Joel. Speak to your tax
I got to learn
professional.
more about. But yeah, that's definitely something we're hearing more about. Maybe a future topic on opportunity.
That's one of my tax. Oh well.
Thank you.
We do. Yep, we do. One thing as an owner that you should have on your homes, annual pest and termite and moisture inspections. You'd be shocked at how many people don't have moisture inspections or termite inspections. And when I approach the subject, they're like, why would I do that? I'm like, is your house made of wood? Or do we live in Virginia Beach? Like there's moisture here and it's just, again, protecting your home, making sure that you're not having to be proactive. You're not having to play catch up and spend costs that you didn't have to spend because you were negligent with the property. So make sure you have those up to date, and also service contracts for the major components of your home, and stay ahead of the game. Whether it's your HVAC or what have you, just have that serviced every year. For the servicing? Just so it's not 100 degrees in the summertime and your tenant calls you on a Friday evening and says, my HVAC's not working, and I want to yell at you for the next hour. Ooh. Whoa.
You're saying no warranty in general. We're working on engineering plans on ships. One thing you should have, a little box that says, in case of emergency, break glass, get a condenser. Right there, a capacitor, right next to your AC, because you buy it, it's $25. When you buy it from company HVAC,
you're not wrong.
You're going to pay $180, $200 plus the labor to put it in.
Yep, and if that's on a Saturday, that labor is going to cost you double.
Every time on a Friday night. Nobody noticed it until Friday night.
I agree, but
Capacitor, that's what it's going to do. It's
So sorry,
And so those you
sorry
don't
you
know-
got dragged under the
Yeah.
the bus here with the.
And for those of you who don't know, a capacitor is the battery for the system. Pretty much, it goes out. That's going to be your main problem. Yep.
Especially they're gonna put a cheap one.
Yep.
You go to Granger, order brand online, and have it ready on hand.
Yep.
There you go.
Nope. That's seriously, that's a good call. So to your question, because you started to talk about home warranties, I got a lot to say about home warranties. Okay, home warranties to me are
Are you about to do a water boy?
I was about to just start bashing. Home warranties to me are quite possibly some of the biggest wastes of money.
I will hold on real quick. There's a very big difference between a landlord and a homeowner.
It's a good point.
Because a homeowner, they're on their own time. They
Yeah.
can wait 2 weeks to get their AC fixed. A landlord is having their tenant.
Yeah.
wait
It's
2 weeks.
huge
I'm gonna
difference.
let you take it
No,
from
no,
there,
you're
but I
absolutely
think
right.
there's a difference.
You're absolutely
It's
right.
a good time for home warranty. I think it's a bad
If you're living in your home and you have and you want a home warranty, hey, more power to you. You deal with that nonsense. If you have a tenant in your home, you should absolutely you should not have a home warranty. Exactly. They're not. They don't want to. They use some of the. Exactly. They use some of the I call lowly vendors, guys that aren't very good. They don't pay them much, so they don't want to do anything. So they're going to band-aid the best they can. It might break down the very next day. They don't care. They're going to take multiple days just to get there most of the time. It's just not worth it for your home. You're going to create a terrible relationship with the tenant. They're never going to trust you on anything anymore, and it's going to be immediate animosity every time you deal with them because of this home warranty. I don't recommend them. You do whatever you like, but I do not recommend home warranties one bit.
Do you guys? I know. So I don't work on the property management side anymore. I used to when I first started the business. Then we kind of separated.
Alice ain't built for that life.
I'm not built for that life. I'm too nice.
Exactly.
And so like shoot, I forgot where I was going. Damn, I got super sidetracked on
So
the jacket comment.
used to work in property management. Home warranties.
Home warranty, son of a gun. It'll come back to me. That's all right. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Dat, home inspections.
Small business owner, just him and another employee. They'll hire him every biannually or whatever. And I do full report, just the inspection. Any issues that they see, go with the document, provide a full report and report it back for a fraction of the cost of a full home inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Still get the same eyes on everything because it takes my dad an hour or two to inspect the home. It takes him 4 or 5 hours to write a report. So, one like my dad, or you go with a smaller home inspector to go kind of put eyes on the property, just kind of get a checkup like what's, and they'll tell you, this is okay for right now. This is going to be a problem next couple of years.
No, it's Joel. That's actually a really good idea, and we tried to put that in place with some of our owners about 4 years ago. I think it was maybe 3.5 years ago. They didn't want to pay for it, and no matter how much we told them, like what good it would do, because I agree with you and what your dad does and doing it that way. I think it's brilliant. But they just didn't want to pay for it, and we weren't going to pay for it. The inspections we do now, we use a software to do the inspections called Happy Inspector, and we also do another one we just started using. But it's a full picture inspection. We can take notes on room to room, equipment to equipment. But it's not the same as having someone like your father put eyes on it and give us a professional opinion. And that's what we were trying to do for them, and they just wouldn't do it. I saw the value in it, though. Yeah, yeah. I think for some of my higher valued properties, I've pushed it. It's like you absolutely should have somebody come out here and look at this thing because it's probably worth a lot of money. But some of some of our smaller ones, they're not feeling it.
I think kind of a side note, and I just thought of this right now, so probably shouldn't even say anything, but I think homeowners should think about like just the age of their house in general, right? Like we've got several properties come up because we picked up a lot of business in like 06,
Yeah.
07. They're getting to this age frame where everything is getting older in the property. So just to be aware of those timelines is a big deal. Like you're going to be needing a new roof. You're going to be needing a new HVAC. You're going to be needing a new hot water heater. A lot of times people put those things off. Well, that means you should start saving or you should probably start selling.
Yeah. sell.
Yeah. One of those things, but you better start looking into that because that something.
If you sell, call Alex Winfield.
Yeah. But yeah, I think just being aware of those timelines is a big deal. Like that's when you go to sell your property, you're like, all right, I sold my property for $500,000. Well, did you really, or did you just replace $70,000 worth of equipment that year before? So like just those different things can make a huge factor on the property that you landlord or the property that you're selling.
Agree. Totally agree. Just trying to move through the list a little bit. So, one of the this should not be an issue amongst landlords, but it always is, and I still to this day don't understand changing the locks between your tenants. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to. It's a safety measure, in my opinion. If there's no law on it, there's no code on it, but you should want to on the mere fact that you don't know who has the keys, no matter what keys they've given back to you. I mean, there's literally a story out there a couple years back, and Glenn's told this story a couple times, but landlord refused to change the locks. He just adamantly, I'm not changing locks. You get my keys back, and that's an added cost I don't need. Someone broke into the house, or not broke in, let themselves into the home because they had keys, raped the woman that lived there. Yeah. So the landlord's like, oh, shit. So, as a landlord, yes, it's an added cost to change the locks. Change the locks. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, not that big of a deal. It is really not.
That's the thing is like, what's the cost of these things
Yeah.
compared to what's the risk? Like,
I mean,
some of the risks are super high.
I mean, you might spend $125 to change the locks, but you might be keeping someone safe.
What about automated locks, like digital locks, where you change the keypad that the tenant uses to get in? Would that be a better investment?
Only reason why, yeah. Gerard Golden asked the question: would it be a better investment to add keypads, automated just electronic keypads instead of traditional locking systems? I don't like to do it, and the reason why is because they're run by battery and whatnot, and if something happens and it goes down, then you're sending out on the owner's dime, sending out a handyman to put a damn battery in, and it's going to cost you anywhere from $55 to $110 to do so for a battery for your lock. I'd say you can put those in, and if it's a convenience to you to have it, but also put a regular lock in as well. The tenant always needs to have a key. I think that's important. Does that answer your question, Gerard? You're welcome, sir. Gerard is I'm messing with him, but Gerard is one of the best landlords I know. So. Yeah. Okay, so the question was, I'm guessing they're asking what area of focus should they be in? Is that how you're reading it? Okay.
And they're newbie to property management.
You know, it's honestly up to the person and what you're interested in my opinion. However, I think if you manage single family homes, everything else is easy. Single family homes, because they're all individually designed, and there's a difference with everything. Nothing's ever the same, especially if you manage multiple different single family homes. Apartment complexes, to me, if someone wants to throw me a multifamily management, I'm like, yeah, all day long. The reason why is because it's cookie cutter. Every room's the same. So you just do everything the same all the time. In single family homes, nothing's ever going to be the same. And so you're going to learn how to manage in multiple different ways, and how to maintain those homes. And I think that makes you a bit stronger in property management. And I hope that answers the question.
And I'll say from a sales perspective, if you are trying to get into property management, it's going to be easier to take on, you're going to find more business right away picking up single family homes, as opposed to saying, hey, I've never done this before. Can I go do a, multi-unit complex? Just the easier way to get into it, because people are like, well, you might not know everything, but you're going to hustle really hard and you're going to work for me. So I think single family homes might be a more direct route.
Yeah, I agree.
Or get with another property manager and work with them. That is a great way to learn, because you can learn their systems, how they work. You can help them with their portfolio while you build your own portfolio. And that's something that most property managers do not think about. But bigger property managers need people
Yeah.
to help, and they're not against you managing your own properties at the same time.
Now, Alex, that's a very good point, and that's something that we try to kind of do with some of the folks that work with us. It's like, while you're building this, just come help me manage mine, and you're going to learn a lot from doing so. And I think that's one of the best ways to learn, is just to put your hands on it. Let's see. So, if you were thinking about hiring a property manager, I have questions that I would ask, and that people have asked me over the years, and I think there's some of the more important questions. And one of the questions that I get surprised when they don't ask me. They don't ask me what type of programming or software I'm using for property management. Now, you're not going to know what any of it is, but you want to make the goal is to make sure that they're using something, because if they're not, and they're still doing it the old school way, like some people that we know, writing on notepads and carrying notes in their pockets, and writing, it's just like, what are you doing? Like, this is 2023. There's something for everything. You can, why would you even torture yourself that way? So we use a property management software. Everything that we have, notes, pictures, properties, all goes in there, and the owner can have access to that as well. So anything that pertains to your property, you log in, you see it. I'm sorry. Oh hell, it was implemented before I even moved here. Probably 2000. I guess they started maybe in 2011, 2000. Like, look, they're newer software. There's always been software, but the newer generation of software started probably circa 2010. The software we use is called Buildium. Buildium. Yep, yep. And Buildium, if you have a few properties like you have, it's free for you. So if you wanted to put your information and use it, you could use it. And look, and there's no wrong softwares. Yeah, I mean, I would, if you ever think about using a software, I would just experiment with a couple of them to see which one works better for you. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, and I hope nobody from Buildium's listening, because I talk to them all the time, I don't really love Buildium, but we've used it for so long, I can't imagine making a change. It would, I mean, it would probably give me nightmares. Yeah, can't do it.
And it's been good.
It's been good. It's been good. But yeah, that's, to me, that's a biggie if you want to move ahead in the game, and have a good property manager that's going to know what they're doing to stay on top of everything. Um, I said it earlier. Ask them how many properties they manage. If they manage more than 55 to 70 properties by themselves, they're probably not always going to be available for you, or someone's not going to be available for you, and they're going to be struggling most of the time and drowning a little bit. They need to have a team. We have a team. It works. I can't see doing it any other way. how do you approve, or pardon me, how do you approve or find tenants? We kind of talked about that earlier too. Just make sure your property manager is doing basic credit and background checks. They're checking social media, as I mentioned before, and make sure that they're running this by you. Don't just, I wouldn't give them full reign on approval. Just, hey, give me a quick, this is what we got. Like, let me be the one to say no. And personally, I like the owner telling me yes or no, because, or Kim, who's doing the work for us, because if it goes bad, I'm like, well, you approved that tenant. So it's, it's kind of, I'm not saying it's on you, but it's on you. But and also, how long have you been in property management? Me personally, I've been in real estate for, tell my age, over 20 years. I wasn't always on this side of real estate. I worked in Richmond for 10 years. I was in title insurance prior to this. I did everything I could do in title insurance. I ran a search department. I searched title. I got my title insurance license. I sold title insurance all around Virginia and some other states. And that's right around the time that Glenn met me and promised me riches if I came to work, if I came to work on this side of real estate. Haven't seen it yet, but we're still waiting. Um, uh,
One day at a time.
yeah, one day at a time. A good property manager is going to know their limitations, and they're going to be honest with you and tell you things. I've gotten to the point in my career where I'm just honest with folks who talk to me about property management. I'll tell you if I want to manage your property or not. I'll tell you exactly why I don't want to manage it. I'll tell you if I don't think we're a good match for each other personality wise. These things matter because you don't want to get into a relationship with someone that you don't like, or that you don't think is going to be, that you can trust or do the job for you. So as you're interviewing property managers, just make sure you like that person. That goes a long way. I promise. That's really all I got, Alex.
Yeah. Man, we appreciate you coming up here and sharing all this. Guys, does anybody have any questions? We can open it up. I know we're probably pretty close to beer ordering ending time. What's that called? Last call?
Last call.
And yeah, has anybody got any questions for Megan? What you got, man?
So I know that to get a real estate transaction, you have to be a broker in order to facilitate the transfer of money between in a real estate transaction.
Yeah.
Did you need to go out and get your broker's license prior to becoming a property manager, or was it because you work for this group under Glenn, he's technically your broker in that entire scenario?
So good question, and a couple answers here. So the question was, I actually had the mic, so I don't have to repeat that one. We both have our real estate licenses. We work under our brokers, so that answers that question. We don't have to be a broker to do what we do, but we do have to be a licensed agent, which we are, and we're realtors as well. There is a difference there. There are licensed agents and realtors. We are both. As far as being a broker, I'm actually in the process of doing that right now. It's a pain in the ass, but somebody's got to do it, and Alex doesn't want to help me, doesn't want to do it either. So I'm it today. But yeah, so answer your question, no, you don't have to be a broker. You can get your real estate license and do it. You do have to work for a brokerage. Absolutely. You have to, if you get your license, you have to place your license somewhere. It doesn't mean you show up every day, but yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't even know if I should touch on this. There are places where you can work and manage property and not be licensed, but it's gray, and I wouldn't really do it that way. Yeah. You can, and that's kind of what I was alluding to. But if you're going to do any type of volume or and most of the time, honestly, if you go to work for a place, they're going to ask you to be licensed if you plan on doing something like that. But if we're talking like basic apartment leasing, and some companies out there that will let you do it, but most real estate companies aren't going to allow that.
And if you have ownership in the property,
Yes.
then you're good to go.
Yeah. That's it. Alex just said if you own the property, you're good to go. If you're managing your own properties.
what are you seeing in the market right now as far as rental rates are concerned? They went really high, right, over COVID. Are
Yeah.
they still really high? Are they continuing to climb? Are they settling down? Are they backing up?
So
What's going on there?
it's an interesting question, and actually, I'm glad you asked. So during COVID and like right after we started coming out of it, rental rates were absolutely absurd. I remember it catching me by surprise when I called an owner that was asking me to do some CMA, some comparative marketing analysis, and so I sent him back what I thought the property was worth as far as rental, and he just went, "I don't know, man. I've been hearing about some high prices." I'm like, "Ah, man, if you want to be safe, you're going to rent it at this rate." And then I stepped back a second and I went and looked at some rentals that just came on the market. I was like, "Holy shit." we're moving up the chain here. So they've stayed high consistently for some time now, and renters aren't slowing down. And with the way interest rates are, we're seeing more renters as it is, and more people entering the property management market as far as owners are concerned. I was just telling Alex, and within like a week and a half, I signed up like 6 new owners, which is a lot. So right now the prices are still pretty high, Ryan. I mean, they're sustaining. Haven't seen a whole lot of drop off. I keep waiting for it. It hasn't happened, and renters are still paying it. I wouldn't say it's trending up. I would say it's just flattening out. Yeah. Yep. Yep. But the thing is, I don't know that it's going to change anytime soon. Like I keep waiting for the bottom to drop out, and I think it might just be the way it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I
Well,
think
if you
this
look
is
at mortgage payments right now on the same houses, if you're buying them, you're still barely breaking even on most houses to rent them out, even with the higher rents. So there's a supply and demand, but then there's also just a cost to own and have it as a rental property. I think that's going to keep pushing it up, even if maybe supply and demand isn't quite as strong as it was last year.
yeah.
Which it might still be as strong as it was.
I
I was looking at something today, and I was like, "Geez, Louise, is it really that high?" Because I had a similar property that I own and rented, and I'm not nearly anywhere close to what people
I
are renting it
promise you it's
for.
that high.
I'm like, dang, that's to rethink some things.
I mean,
but
it's there's still we're still in renters are still in competition for rentals right now. I mean, we've got folks that they'll call and Kim has showed them a property, our leasing agent, and it's rented that day, and they just I'm talking in tears. Like they've been trying to find a place for a month, and they're just late every time, or either they couldn't beat the person in front of them, or So I think we're still in the same boat for the most part.
I think something for a future topic here at Opportunity too would be the cost of living going up so much. I mean, there's a crisis across our country where people are not going to be able to, probably world, are not going to be able to afford the places by the income they make.
Yeah.
And it's not a landlord's fault really either. It's that's the market. They're in the same market too. But it's a legit problem. We just met last week with Chris Taylor, one of the city councilmen, put on a affordable housing summit, and it's not just here; it's everywhere, and something that we should all be discussing as landlords too. I'm all about capitalism, about making money, but it's something that we should all understand and know that what's going on around us too is what can people afford, and how can we provide housing to everybody. I think that's actually going to be a huge area for people to tap into in the near future is affordable housing, which is a super generic term that can mean a lot of things. But I think
I don't understand. We had plenty of houses before COVID. Then a bunch of people died, and now we don't have any houses.
Well, since you so lovingly put it that way.
That's it. He was saying we had a bunch of people die during COVID, and still there's no houses. Basically, not enough people died.
I'm sorry that these savages are laughing about this.
Wait.
Including me. And just to piggyback real quick off what Alex was talking about affordable housing, and I was having a discussion with him before we got kicked off here. A couple of people I had spoken to recently, to manage their rentals. They were coming from the Airbnb sector, and they different reasons for leaving. No, whether it was wear and tear on their homes or what have you. The problem is this, and I see this more than often now. When they got their homes for Airbnb, and these particular homes are a couple years old, when they got their homes for Airbnb, they were nice big homes, freshly built in areas that are, okay. The streets aren't quite there yet. You can see it coming, but you're still several years off from what it's going to look like. Chard went through a situation with that with one of his properties. The biggest problem I have right now is it's in an area where they want to charge this, but people can only afford this. And you have to consider that with your Airbnb homes. It's just like, yeah, you might have been, I don't know if you were making a premium or if you were making any money, any real money at all. But if you had your home in an area that was not extremely desirable, but you need to get this in rent, but people around there can only afford this, you're in trouble. And I don't really know how to explain that to you other than just tell you the truth and just say, this is what we can get in rent. You're going to have to make do. So just, it's something to consider if you're in that arena about your home and possibly trying to rent it long term. It may be tough.
I think one of the things is, like, in the commercial sector, they're always going to look at what the average incomes are, what's the average demographics, what's the population around here going to be able to afford. We don't really do that on the residential side because we feel like we can kind of like make a kitchen look really nice and people will pay more money for it. At some point, you're going to outpace your environment around you, and then there's a problem. In the last couple of years, people have been able to get away with charging whatever the heck they wanted, whether they're selling or renting. How long will that last? Who knows? But like you're saying, if there's the people who are doing short-term rentals and they bought on the idea that it was going to be a short-term rental, well, if they don't want it to be a short-term rental anymore, what's that going to be? I mean, I think that's why one of the reasons we always say, even if you're buying a short-term rental, make sure it's going to work as a long-term rental first.
You never know how
at
it's
least
going to
break
go.
even.
I mean, my next recommendation, if it doesn't go well, is I'm like, hey man, have you met Alex Winfield?
Sell that thing.
Because I mean, it's just, I can't, I'm really, I'm not afraid to learn. I'm really good at what I do, but I can't make a miracle. And if the property is just not worth it, it's just not worth it.
So, I mean, I think, we can ask more questions. We can chat once we finish up. Let's call it a day. I think that was great, Macon. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us. Always a pleasure. Peace.
Good show, you guys.